This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem. So we're continuing in Siman Gimel in Shulchan Aruch Chaim, and we're continuing in Siman Gimel is Hanhagas Haboker and Hanhagas Beis Hakisei. So we're going to talk about the halachos of wiping in the bathroom. Does anyone here know what hand to use to wipe? There's a hand you're allowed to use and the hand you're not allowed to use. Say what? You know about this? Left hand. You have to use the left hand or not use the left hand? Left hand. Which finger are you not allowed to use? You're not allowed to use the middle finger. So Sivkat Lam Zayin. Lo yikaneach biyad yamin. You're not allowed to wipe with the right hand. So the question is why? So one of the reasons is because the right hand is used to put on the tefillin, which is counterintuitive. Because you put the tefillin on the left hand. So which hand should have more kedusha? The hand used to tie the tefillin or the hand which is used to wear the tefillin? But from here we see a very important idea. That preparing to do the mitzvah is greater than the mitzvah itself. So he says, Lo yikanech biyad yamin, and as we're going to see, the Gemara Brachos on Zaf Samach Beis brings 3 reasons not to wipe with your right hand. V'imhu iter yad, someone who's a lefty, shekol inyan avoisa b'smal, that he does everything with his left hand, mekaneach b'smal didei, he wipes with his left hand, which is sheyamin kol adam, which is everyone else's right. In other words, someone who's a lefty, he does everything with his left hand. He wipes with his weaker hand, which is the right side. He wipes with his right hand. Now, v'im koisev divrei kedusha b'yamin. What if he writes with his right hand? Ushar dvar v'oisa b'smal. Oy koisev b'smal ushar dvar v'oisa b'yamin. Now, does anybody remember, what's the halacha if somebody does everything with their right hand except for writing, or everything with their left hand except for writing? What do you put tefillin on? Any lefties here? You're lefty? You do everything with your left hand? Everything. Fine, so you put tefillin on your right hand. So that means you're tying the tefillin with your left hand. So you're going to put tefillin on your right hand, and you wipe with your right hand. So it's a simple case. But there are some people, they write with their left hand, they do everything with the right, or vice versa. So there are 2 deos in the Shulchan Aruch and Siman Chav Zayin. In Siman Chav Zayin, Sif Vav, the Mechaber brings an opinion that the first opinion is writing is not a critical part of determining where to put on tefillin. It goes by the weaker hand. Whatever is the stronger hand, you do not put on tefillin. Whatever is the weaker hand, you do put on tefillin. However, the Mechaber brings another opinion. The other opinion is that it says ukshartam uchsavtam. The hand that you write in should be the hand that you tie your tefillin in. So according to that, it doesn't matter what you do everything else with. It all depends on what you write tefillin with. If you write tefillin with your left hand, then you're going to tie tefillin onto the right hand. Ukshartam, with what? Uchsavtam. You're going to tie with the hand that you write with. So, what should a person do if they write with one hand and they do everything with the other hand? So the Reb Chaim Kanievsky says here in the Shoneh Halachos, he quotes the Bir Halacha, Mekaneach b'smal d'chol adam. He should wipe with his left hand. Now that's a very unusual halacha. Actually, it doesn't make sense. Why? Because what is the conclusion of the halacha? If somebody writes with one hand and does everything else with the left hand, what's the bottom line? If somebody writes with one hand and does everything else with the other hand, the bottom line is the Mishnah Brura and the Rama follows the opinion we go by writing. Writing is a critical factor, which means if somebody is writing with their left hand, they're going to tie tefillin with their left hand, they're going to put the tefillin on the right hand, and in that case, they should wipe with their right hand. And yet, Reb Chaim says they should wipe with their left hand. What's the reason for that? Right? It's counterintuitive. It's not consistent with Hilchos Tefillin. So let's take a look over here in some of the notes in the Dirshu. to understand what the rationale of this halacha is. If you look at number 10, the Gemara in Bracha Samach Beis brings, why should a person not wipe with his right hand? So the first thing is, the Gemara says, Shetam hadavar hu mishum sha'Torah nitna biyamin. It's because the Torah was given with Hashem's right hand. How do you know that? Mimina eshta aslama. The Torah was given with Hashem's right hand. So you don't want to wipe with the right hand because the right hand has kedusha. Hashem gave the Torah with the right hand. Or because most people, they eat with their right hand. So you don't want to wipe with the hand that you eat with. Now, that reason does not apply to a lefty. Oy mishum, or because shemarim biyadzu is tamei Torah. When you're a gabbai and you need to motion, darga severe tipcha, right? Stop. Soif pasuk. So your hand has kedusha because it's used to show the tamim of the Torah. So the bottom line is there are three reasons why not to wipe with the right hand. Number one, Rebbe Shem gave the Torah with the right hand. Number two, because you usually eat with the right hand. Number three, because you show the ta'amim of the Torah with the right hand. So according to that, we'll see what should a lefty do. A lefty, on the one hand, he shouldn't wipe with the right hand because at the end of the day, the Rebbe Shem's a righty, and the Rebbe Shem gave the Torah with the right hand. On the other hand, he eats with his left hand, and he shows ta'amim with his left hand. So 2 out of the 3 reasons dictate he should wipe with his right hand. So therefore a lefty wipes with his right hand. What about a woman? Woman doesn't wear tefillin. So a woman doesn't wear tefillin, right? So actually, there are 4 reasons to wipe with the left hand. One, because the right hand is used to tie tefillin, because Hashem gave the Torah with the right hand. Person eats with his right side, and a person shows the ta'amim of the Torah with the right side. So a woman, Rabbi Yaakov Emden paskins, has to be makbid, not to wipe with her right hand. This is also the psak of the Makar Chayim. Because some of the reasons mentioned apply to a woman, even though she's not a gabbai. But Lamaisa Hashem gave the Torah with the right hand. However, the Chidah says a woman doesn't have to be machmer. So the shaila is whether before you get married, on a date, whether this is something that should be discussed. Probably not. What? Why, for men and women, do men and women like plug? Usually not. You don't. Do you ever have women doing one thing and men doing all the time? Pizza. Do you need to wash on one slice of pizza and wash a bench? So, according to most, for men that they usually eat 2 slices, so 2 slices are kviya suda. But women, most women would have 1 slice. So for them, they would. In other words, let's say the halacha. So let's say the kviya suda goes by the sug ha enosh.
But if she came to a certain, everything being equal, she would have to wash. Everything being, in other words.
No, since most women, in other words, the category of women have a different level of kviya suda than the category of men.
But let's say I'm saying like this is saying like you do the opposite. In other words, you're not here. It's because they're not as big or whatever. They just don't put.
No, here it's right. But here it's women don't put on tefillin, so it's not negeya, right? So that's the shaila whether. It sounds like even Rabbi Yaakov Emden, who says you should be maked, it's because some of the other reasons do apply. Okay. Now, a lefty. Why does a lefty wipe with his right hand? Why? Hashem still gave the Torah with his right hand. So he brings in number 11, the Taz and the Magen Avram, that based on the Gemara's 3 reasons, which is very interesting, he says, based on the Gemara's 3 reasons, according to the reason that you tie tefillin onto the left hand, so a lefty ties tefillin onto the right hand. So he would wipe with his right hand. And according to the reason that he eats, so he eats with his left hand. And according to the reason that he shows in the Torah, he shows with his left hand. So all three reasons given by the Gemara do not apply to a lefty. What about the fact that God gave the Torah with his right hand? No, for lefties, God is a lefty. Now what does that mean? Not really. It means like this. The way a lefty should view it is not that the Rebbeinu Shalom gave it with his right hand. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave the Torah with his stronger hand. So for the Rebbeinu Shalom, it's his right hand, and for me, it's my left hand. So all four reasons, a lefty needs to wipe with his right hand according to all four reasons.
Two and two.
Does somebody has to be moister? Okay, what 2 and 2 what? With 2 reasons one way and 2 way the other way? Okay, let's see. Does a person have to give up his life to be Mekayim this halacha? Is this Yehareg Ve'al Yavar? Say what? It's not only Avodah Gila Ras Shir Dam. The answer is, but b'shashmad. Someone has to adhere to every halacha. Or let's say like this. Let's say somebody is commissioned to write the halachos of Klal Yisrael. And they say, if you write this halacha, we're going to take away your life. Are you allowed to misrepresent this halacha to save your life? No, you can't misrepresent any halacha. So as trivial as it may sound, l'maisa, it's a halacha like any other halacha. Now, what about somebody who is a ambidextrous? He writes with his left hand, and he does everything else with his right hand. What hand does this person put tefillin on? How do we paskin? No, he writes with his left, and he does everything else with his right. What hand does he put tefillin on? L'halacha, right hand. We paskin like the second shita in Siman Chav Zayin Sifav. We go by writing. The Gra does not go by writing, but the Ramah and the Mishnah Berurah go by writing straight up. Some people, right? What do you mean you switch hand? Not every day.
No, actually once a week.
Once a week. But the halacha, me'ikr hadin, we paskin, you go by writing. So what the question now is, they're putting tefillin on the right hand. They're tying the tefillin on with their left hand to put it on the right. So in that case, what should they wipe with? So on the one hand, they can't wipe with the left hand because they're tying tefillin. On the other hand, they're motioning for the Sefer Torah with their right hand. They're eating with their right hand. Hashem gave the Torah with his right hand. So it's basically 3 against 1. So for them, they have to wipe with their left hand. But Rav Nassan pointed out, they don't have the chumrah of, but avoid using the middle finger. Normally we say avoid using the middle because you're tying the tefillin on the middle finger. But they're not putting tefillin on the left hand, they're putting tefillin on the right hand. So actually it's a very big convenience. Someone who writes with one hand and does everything with the right hand, it's a special matana Hashem gave. They don't have the restriction of not being mekaneach be'etzba ha'emtzai. See,
if it's reversed, the person writes with
let's say somebody writes with his right hand and he does everything with his left hand.
Now it's 2 and 2.
He writes with his right hand. So he writes with his right hand. So he's putting tefillin on the left hand. So he's tying the tefillin with the right hand. So he's tying the tefillin with the right hand. He's motioning with the Sefer Torah with the left. He's eating with the left. And legabe Hashem giving the Torah, we had before that regarding him, it's the stronger hand. So it's really 3 in 1 in a way. But he brings over here from the Pri Megadim of Vushay Srad that even though according to the Tam Kshiras Tefillin you should wipe with your right hand, but according to the other reasons that you're mara the Ta'amim and the Torah and you're Giyum Lahoshit Lepeh, you have to wipe with your right hand, which is the left side. Oh, he says Gam Lefi Hatam Shatar Nitna Biyamin. So in other words, he's writing with his left hand. So that means he's tying the tefillin with the left hand, but nevertheless, he does everything else with the right. He's eating with the right. He's mara the Sefer Torah with the right. And what else? And also the Torah is given with the right. So it's really it's 3 and 1.
The other one is the problem.
The other way it's 2 and 2. The other way what? The guy writes with his right hand. He does everything else with the left. So he's eating with his left. He's marring the Sefer Torah with the left. But Hashem gave the Torah with the right hand. And what? And he's tying the tefillin with the right.
Right.
I would say Chamira Sakanta Me Yisura. Lamaisa, he's eating with his left hand, you know. Okay, so the Shoneh Halachos continues. Sivkatan Lamed Ches. Toiv lizar melekaneach be'etzva hamtzai shekar chalav etzua. It is good to avoid wiping with the middle finger. Sivkatan Lamed Tes. Yizar ma'oy lekaneach hetev. You have to be very careful to wipe very well. Kitzoya b'makoyma b'mashehu. If there's even one particle of tzoya in the pi hatabas, you're not allowed to daven. You're not allowed to daven. So you have to make sure you wipe well. Therefore, toiv lirchoitz pi hatabas b'mayim oy b'roik. It's good to use some water. It is good to use some water. I know that I heard from Talmidei Chacham Muflagim that want to be makbid on this. Yeah? So, yeah, you might have to invest in better pipes, but yeah. Sivkatan Membez. Sivkatan Memalf. Leikanech Becharis. Don't use earthenware, Vafilu Chalaka, even if it's smooth. With Manena Makilin, Imi Chalaka Dafka. Nowadays, if it's smooth, you could use earthenware. So if you want to take your mother's china and break it to use for, so you'll have to be mashlim, but Bizman Azay you're allowed to. Sivkatan Membez. Leikanech Basam Yiveshim. Don't use dry grass, because it's kasha lekishuf. Leikanech B'davar Sha'ar Shoylebay. Don't use something that's flammable. V'zmanenu yesh lahakal b'zeh. Memdal lo yikaneach b'tzrar. Now, one second. If I'm not mistaken, Reb Chaim has a chiddush about toilet paper. Is there a Dirshu Aleph here? That nowadays, do we have Dirshu? I think that nowadays the toilet paper is effective, then it's not so it is not so imperative, the halacha of Tov Lirchotz Piatabas B'mayim Oy B'roik. Okay. Lo yikanech b'tzrar shakinech b'chaverai. Don't use used tissues. Okay? Vim yavesh, but if it dried out, oy shekanech b'tzarach, if you want to use the other side, oy shekanech b'hu atzmai, or you used it already, mutter. Okay, you know, it's in America, it's hard to imagine even discussing this halacha. Okay. Kishiyotzim beis hakisei, yira hamakim sheyashav alav shalei hei sham tinoifes, shemayav echaver pisaim oy b'lai v'yeshav alav. Make sure you clean up after yourself. So sometimes when the day is over, say, did I do any good deeds today? I didn't learn well, I didn't daven well, but if you clean the seat when you're done, at least you did a dvar mitzvah. You know, we just visited, I went with Reb Nassan to Rechoiv Ha'ayin Ches, Chatzer Streis. That's Strauss Chatzer, where Rav Naftali Amsterdam lived, where Rav Itzla Petterberg lived. And they came to Eretz Yisrael at the end of their lives, and it was once Erev Yom Kippur, and nobody knew where they were. What were they doing in Erev Yom Kippur? And they found these two tzaddikim were going around to all the shuls in Yerushalayim, cutting toilet paper. Because they say people are busy Erev Yom Kippur, and people eat a lot on Erev Yom Kippur, and Yom Kippur they're going to need to use the Beis HaKisei, and sometimes there's not sufficient toilet paper. So what could be a bigger schus than to make sure that people have what they need? So Rav Itzla Petterberg, Rav Tali Amsterdam spent their Erev Yom Kippur. Some people, they go to the mikvah, and so there's a guy in front of me, I don't know how many times the guy was toivel. Pal, enough already. It's 3 times as good. That's the halacha. 3 times as good. You're going to make somebody wait because you want to be toivel an extra time. Better follow the example of Itzla Petterberg. Make sure there's enough tissues in all the bathrooms. That's a much bigger inyan than being toivel more than the halacha dictates. That's what Mesilas Yesharim says. Hachasidus ha'amiti rachaik mitzir sechlenu. People have false ideas of what righteousness is. You know what righteousness is? Make sure, come early to shul, and make sure there's tissues in the bathroom for someone else. Memvav, Hayoshem Mishtai. Somebody who is married and they're sleeping in a bedroom, their wife is there, Lo Yashin Ben Mizrach Lamarav. Should not sleep between east and west. Rak Roisha Shalmita Letzafain Umaglaisela Darim. Dafka, the head of the bed should be the north and the feet to the south. That is the first opinion brought in the Mishnah Berurah, based on the Zayar. Some say just the opposite. However, and who says the opposite? Ramami Pano. V'toiv yoiser linoi kedea rishaina. It's better to follow the first opinion, to put the bed between north and south. Dafka, the head to the north and the feet to the south. Many people came to Reb Chaim Kanievsky for a segula to have children. And in many situations, Reb Chaim said to be makbid on this. And they said, but Lamaisa, there are two opinions, and my apartment is so small, and if I do it that way, I'm going to have the bed on an angle. Reb Chaim said, put the bed north to south. But the guy says, I'm going to have half my legs sticking out the window, and Reb Chaim said, put the bed north to south. Now this is talking about Davka, somebody who's married. It says Mechaber Mem Zayin. Vafil ein nishta'ima, even if his wife is not with you. If somebody is sleeping without clothing, vein klam savamita, they don't have a canopy bed. Nachan lizar bazah. So this is a halacha that at first glance it would seem, since anyway there are two opinions, whatever you're going to do, it's going to be okay. But in a situation where somebody is awaiting children, this is something to consider. Okay, we're going to hold it over here for today. Bez Hashem, next week we'll jump to Hilchos Chanukah. Okay, Shkayach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.